Shalom Aleichem. I want to start by dedicating this shir to Davidson. Zal tov on your birthday. Okay, so we're continuing in the Mishnah. New Mishnah. We're in Pirkei, Mishnah Tes. Amar lehem, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, after listening the praises of his Talmidim, he now sends them on a mission. Tse'u u'ra'u, go out and see Eizohi derech yishara shidbak ba'adam. What is that straight path that a man should attach himself to? And each of them gives a different answer. Rabbi Eliezer omer ayin tova, Rabbi Yeshua omer chaver tov, Rabbi Yossi omer shachein tov, Rabbi Shimon omer haro'es hanolad. Rabbi Eliezer, which is Rabbi Eliezer ben Arach, omer leiv tov. So that's mission number one. Then he sends them on a second mission. Amar lehem ro'eh ani. Sorry. First of all, he concludes on the first mission. Ro'eh ani et divrei Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. I see the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. I see them as being correct. Shebichlal divarav divrechem, because all of your words are included in his words. And then he sends them on a second mission. Amar lehem, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says to his Talmidim, go out and see Eizoi derech ra'ah shitrachekem en adam. Go and see which is the bad path that a person should distance himself from. And then with one exception, they say the opposite. Rabbi Eliezer omer ayin ra, Rabbi Yeshua omer chaver ra, Rabbi Yossi omer shachen ra. Rabbi Shimon is unique here. Rabbi Shimon omer haloveh ve'eino meshalem, someone who takes a loan and doesn't pay it back. Echad haloveh ben adam kaloveh ben makom. We'll explain that later on. Shneimar loveh rashav v'lo yishalem, v'tzadik clarity in what's going on over here. So question number one is, what is the purpose of everything? The Torah is the Dasha. The Torah contains all knowledge and the Torah contains all wisdom. Sorry, it's breaking up. You can't hear me? Can you hear now? Yeah? Okay, let me start that again. So question number one is the following. The Torah contains everything that you could possibly look for. So derech hayashar, it's containing it all. So why is he telling them tse'u ura'u? Where are they going out to? Meaning, tse'u means they're in one place, they're leaving that place and they're going out. The Forashim say they were in the base medrash, and he's telling them to leave the base medrash and go out and look. Why are they going out to look? Why don't they look in the Torah? And if you look at the answers are not things that we find in the Torah. They're not bringing psukim for ayin tov, chafer tov, shachein tov. These are the things that they're not bringing psukim for. You know, they could have brought things like emes, they could have brought things like shalom, and they could have easily brought psukim for all these things. The question number one is, why are they leaving the base medrash to find this path? That's question number one. Question number two is, there's a presumption here. The presumption is there is one straight path and you have to go find what that is. Go, what is that one right path, straight path that a person should attach himself to? Who says there's one straight path? Maybe all of the Torah is appropriate. Maybe a person should attach himself to Kol Torah Kula. Is there only one right way? And especially when you look at the answers, that these aren't right ways that we're familiar with. Is he saying here you should be all the time learning the base medrash versus Torah v'Madda? Is that the right way that he's referring to over here? What's the right way that he's referring to? Who says there's one right way? So what's the presumption of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai? Question number three is, he's using the word derech. Normally when you say the word derech, you are holech b'derech. Holech b'derech. So it should have said, Eizohi derech yishara, shielech ba'adam. That would be a natural flow. What is the straight path that a person should walk on? But to switch the natural language and say, Eizohi derech yishara shidbak ba'adam, that a man should stick to, if he's changing to that phrase to stick to, there's something inherent there. There's something meaningful in the word yidbak. We need to discover what that is, to understand what that word is. Why doesn't he use the word yelech? Why the word yidbak? And our final question, which I'm sure you'll remember, when we started this perek, we had a very, very similar phrase. Rebbe Omer, this is the first Mishnah in Perek Sheni. Rebbe Omer, Ezohi derech yishara, so far word for word, sheyavor lo ha'adam, the man should choose. So we have a different phrase here. Now, just to give context, even though the order of Mishnayos, Perek Sheni starts with Rebbe, and then afterwards has Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his Talmidim. But of course, Rebbe was Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, who was the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who was the son of Rabbi Gamliel, who took over from Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So it was at least 2 or 3 generations later, which means that when Rebbe said his statement, he already knew Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's statement. He already knew these 5 ways which that 2 or 3 generations above him had already taught. So what's he coming to add when he says his way? And why does he use a different phrase? Instead of saying she debak ba adam, he says she avor lo adam. You should choose. What's this way that you're choosing? That was question number 4. And final question, number 5, although I'm not so sure about the final, but for now, final question number 5 is this an educational trick that he's using? Pedagogue? Why doesn't he just tell them what he thinks? Like all the way through Pirkei Avos, you don't see that a rabbi calls a student and says, I've got a question. I don't have an answer. You go look for an answer. I mean, it might be valuable as for an educational recap. Question number 1, where are they going out from? If they're going out from the base medrash, okay, don't worry. You can't hear me? You can hear me? Great. Either way, I'm recapping. So if you didn't hear, this is a great opportunity. Question number 1 is they're leaving the base medrash. Where are they going out from? If it's the base medrash, why are they going out? Why don't they just look in Torah? Question number 2, the presumption of Rabbi Yochanan is that there's one right path. Who says there's one right path? Question number 3, the natural language should be shielech, that you walk on. Instead, it uses the language shi the bak, that you attach yourself to. Question, why does it use that language? Question number 4, why does Rebbe, later on in history, although earlier on in Pirkei Avos, change the language of sheyivor bo adam? What was he referring to? What's the difference between shi the bak and sheyivor? Different Mishnayos have different words. And the final question is, why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai just tell them himself what he has to tell them? So our key to answer all of these 5 questions is going to be one phrase in Rabbeinu Yonah. Sometimes Rabbeinu Yonah doesn't have much to say on a Mishnah. Sometimes it's as if he couldn't hold himself back. And this is one of those Mishnahs where Rabbeinu Yonah could not hold himself back. He had so much to share. But I'm just going to, he gives first of all the other Mefarshim, and then he says that he doesn't agree with him, and then he gives his own parish. I'm going to go with his own parish. This is Rabbeinu Yonah about 5-6 lines down, once he's already rejected the other view and told you why he doesn't agree with it, and then he gives his own parish. Here we are. B'kol midas tovos vayesharos yesh la'adam lidabek behem. Right? This is really addressing question number 2 that we asked. There's not one right path. All of good traits, all of straight paths, a person should attach themselves to. So he didn't ask the question number 4, but he's bothered by our question number 2. What do you mean there's only one right path? But what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was coming to tell us, lidabek b'midah achat liot shalem ba. You should have one trait that you attach yourself to, that in that one trait you try and perfect. Ki tov la'adam le'echoz ba'achat b'shleimut. It's appropriate for man, it's good for a man to have one area which he perfects himself in. Now, what do you gain by doing that? V'nakel alav, because from then on, everything else will be easy. La'asig mimena, for you to accomplish, achieve, kol ha'midot ha'chashuvot, all other good traits. Mihiyoto bo, kama midot, ve'eno shalem be'echad mehem. And that's much better than having many traits and not being perfect in one of them. Now, if you remember, we alluded to this point yesterday. I gave the example of how It's good for a rabbi to have one area that he invests in fully. Doctors do that these days, where doctors have one speciality. But now we're going to explain it in a lot more depth in the words of Rabbeinu Yonah explaining Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I'm going to speak about it outside a little bit, just to get clarity on it, and then we'll go back inside and answer all our questions. Torah does contain everything. But there are some points in Torah which, if you address them, they stand alone. Not that they really stand alone. Really, everything is connected to everything else. If you know Torah in depth, you'll see that everything is connected to everything else. But when we learn certain things initially, they seem to us to stand by themselves. So, for example, if you would learn the laws of Peter Chamor, for example, then you would say, okay, that's a unique halacha that applies in a specific area. I finished the halachas of it, and I'm moving on to a new area of halacha. And you get that feel when you learn Mishnah Berurah, because I finished the tzitzis now, I'm moving on to tefillin. I finished tefillin now, I'm moving on to brachos. It seems to us like there's separate sections which we can connect to in halacha, this area and that area. But let's give a mashal, which I heard initially from Rabbi Tatz, which will explain this idea very clearly. In the genes of man, they're not Levi's genes, but rather the genes that are the makeup of a person, then it's an amazing thing which scientists don't really understand exactly why this is the case. They just kind of say it's a fluke of evolution. But every gene contains the information for every part of the body, which means that in your toenail, you have the genes of your eyes, which has the power to see. Now, it's not activated in the toenail, thankfully, but it's only activated in the eye. And in your toenail, in your eye genes, you have the genealogy of your toenails as well, but it's not activated there. Meaning in every gene, it contains the sum total entirety of the entire makeup of man. Just wherever it happens to be, that's where it's activated, and every other part of the body is not activated. And then he said a funny thing. He said, like, for example, there are certain genes which continuously throughout your life continue developing. And there are certain genes which they get to a certain point and they stop. And then he said, for example, when the body is forming, then the genes that are the nose genes, and they know to stop at a certain point. And then Rav Tat says, I'm talking about for those who knew when to stop. Then for those people, it stopped when you had to stop. How did the gene know when to stop? Because it knows that it's a nose gene, because that part was activated. And other parts of the genes are activated in their areas. Now, from a medical point of view, a scientific point of view, it's just that I guess it was more convenient evolution, that everything was in contained in everything else, but there's no deep explanation behind it. However, from a Torah perspective, it's obvious why that would be the case. Because man is a microcosm of the world. And in the world, which is created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything emanates from one source. It's all Hashem. So if everything is one source, then of course everything has one point, if you go back far enough, where it's all interconnected. So for example, everyone sitting here in this room right now, this virtual room, we're all related. How far do we have to go back to being related? Let's say Avraham Avinu. For some of us, it might be much earlier. If you have two Kohanim in the room, they can go back to Aaron HaKohen. We're all related in some way because we all emanate from Adam HaRishon. So we all have some point of connection where our genes will emanate from. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything in the world emanates from him, so everything is interconnected. There are very great rabbis. There's one I knew of in the previous generation, which was Rabbi Simcha Wasserman, and there's one I know of in our generation, who's a young individual, younger than me, and he lives in Rishon LeZion, but he knows Kol HaTorah Kula, including Sod, and his name is Be'eri, but he's not related to Daim Be'eri. So this person and other people as well, they are able to give a shiur where everyone in the crowd says random halachic points or Torah-oriented points, and they say, okay, and they give a shiur where they show there's one yesod underlying all of those extremely random points that were said by all the people. And Rav Tat said that this is what they used to do in his shiur of Simcha Wasserman, and they would try and find the most far-fetched, irrelevant things that you could possibly find in Torah, and they would, each of them, a little chabura, they would say their points, and Rav Simcha Wasserman would say his one point that would show how everything is interconnected. And so too, this young rabbi in Rishon LeZion, who's known as the Yanuka, that's his nickname, he's able to do that as well. random points people say to him, and he ties everything. And of course you can, because Torah is all one yesod. It all emanates from Hashem. And that's why the body of man, which is a microcosm of the world, which is the emanation of Hashem, every gene has contained within it every other element, because everything is interconnected to everything else, because it all emanates from Hashem. Okay, now having said all that, we are not the Yanuka, and we're not Rosh Simcha Wasserman. And therefore, for us, it's pretty difficult for us to take any one random point and say, oh, that's obviously connected to every other area in Torah, because of the yesod of Peter Chamor is the same yesod as Hilchos Eruvin, which is the same yesod as the Leviathan, the ore of the Leviathan in the future, which the tzaddikim are going to sit under. That might be quite difficult ones for us to tie together. And therefore, when Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai was telling his Talmidim to go out and find the straight path which man could attach himself to, what was he essentially saying? He was saying, of course, every area in Torah is connected to every other area, and of course you have to master everything. But at the same time, there are some, and I'm going to use this phrase, access points. I don't know if anyone else says that phrase, but I like it. Access points, which if you follow that access point, you have more direct access to every other area. And when he was saying to his Talmidim, go out, what was he essentially saying? Let's answer question number one. If you stay in the Beis Medrash, when you're looking at Torah in the Beis Medrash, then of course everything connects back to everything else, and you on your very high level, these Talmidim are able to see that. But I'm asking you, go look for what works in the world. You know what's practical? Let me give you a mashal, Lama Hadavadome. Maybe you'll like this mashal. Imagine I'm looking at my phone and I have a weather app on my phone. Let's call it AccuWeather. And I press on my AccuWeather because I'm looking at it, and it says there that right now it's sunny outside. And I say to my kids, you can go out and play, it's sunny outside. And they say, Abba, it's raining. And I say, no, look, it says here that it's sunny. And they go, yeah, but Abba, look, it's raining outside. I say, I don't understand. It says here that, they go, I don't know, maybe the app made a mistake, or maybe, I don't know how to interpret that, but it's not what's happening outside. In Torah, there's two parts. There's the Torah, which is the mashpia, from above, and there's the world, which is that which receives from below. Really, deeply, they always align with each other. The Torah gives influence to the world, and we, in this world, we receive the influence from the Torah. But sometimes it's healthy to start from the Torah's perspective, where you get the theory behind everything. I'll give you a mashal within halacha. Imagine that you're a mashgiach kashrut. You might be brilliant in all the laws of basar v'chalav, in all the laws of bittul and rov, right? But you just don't know what the difference between a cow and a horse. So you say, oh, finally, here is this cow that I've been looking for. I know exactly how to shecht it. And you're checking your knife, and you're doing all the preparations, and you're shechting the horse, and you say, brilliant. You check the lungs. Baruch Hashem, it's kosher, even according to the base Yosef, chalak, glat, fantastic. And then someone says, that's a horse. And you say, what do you mean it's a horse? I learned Hilchos Shchita. You say, yes, you learned Hilchos Shchita, but this is a horse. There are certain times where you have to come from above, and certain times when you have to come from below. When it comes to midas, it doesn't help to be in an ivory tower and learn the theory behind which midas are the appropriate midas for a man to work on in the Beis Medrash. You have to go out and leave the Beis Medrash and look in the world. What are the authentic access points which people connect to? Of course, they have to fall in line with Torah. They can't contradict Torah. But what Rabbi Yochanan was sending his Talmidim out of the Beis Medrash was on a mission to see in the world, look at the world, look at the people, what works, what actually works. Of course, in the end, everything will reconnect back to everything else, like the nature of Torah is. But I'm asking you, my precious Talmidim, go and look in the world, what's Lamaisa? What enables people to reach Shleimus? What traits do people take on which with that trait, they accomplish many, many more things. There are certain traits which might be local traits, and they'll perfect those, and they're good just in those. And that's very good. They accomplish a certain area. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying, go look in the world, who is successful? Lahavdil elef avdalos, but it's a little bit like, there's a book which is highly recommended, although not a Torah source, which is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, what he did in that book was, he went out to the world and looked what works. Let's look in the world. What is successful? What causes people to be successful in the world? He started from the Adam. He started from man. He didn't have any agendas. He was just looking to see what enables people to be successful. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was in a different area. He was talking about midas. What midah is an access point to all other midas? Which midah, if you work on, is it like a shortcut that can enable you to then accomplish all other midas with much less effort, and all other midas will be much easier for you. And as we go through these midas of the 5 Talmidim, we're going to see that these midas are not just a very local, you have to work on this area and then you've accomplished that area, then you tick, you check the box, and now you ask, okay, what's next? But rather, these midas are access points that enable you then, once you've worked on those, to much more easily accomplish everything else. I'll give you another mashal just to make it clear. Not that I'm necessarily condoning going to university, but if a person is looking for a profession, then there are many types of professions that you could invest in. You could invest in woodwork, for example, and you would go to woodwork and you would invest in it for a long time, and very good, you're a good woodworker. You could invest in plumbing, and you could learn the art and the skill of plumbing and become very good at plumbing, and you could, invest in how to install air conditioning machines. And you would have 3 very unique, very specific skills that you've learned and you're expert in. Alternatively, you get a degree. Now, if you get a degree, there are many times where it doesn't make a difference what degree you have. And from the first day you go out to work, you will never need an iota of the information that you learned in anything from your degree at all. Bichlal. It was a waste of time, a waste of 3-4 years of your life and 100,000 shekel or dollars of your parents' money. So why did you do the degree? You don't use it at all. And the answer is because for some reason, whichever company it is that decides to hire you, they're only willing to hire people with a degree. And if your degree is in ancient Greek mythology, who cares? It doesn't make a difference. That's irrelevant to your life. They'll take you for that profession because that's an example of an access point. Right? You've taken that's not a very good, it's a terrible example actually, because that's where there's no inherent value in the thing at all, and it's still access point. That's a really, really bad example. But you get the point that certain times you learn a skill and you have that skill. Now you know how to do plumbing. Certain times you develop something which not only did you develop that thing, but that became an access point to you to many other areas. That was a terrible example. Please forget that example, because there it's worthless, the thing in and of itself. It's a really bad example. But the principle was that it opens up many doors to many other areas, not just that area. Okay, let's go back and answer our questions. And then Hashem is grateful. If we're grateful to Hashem and He's kind to us, maybe we'll even start the Mishnah. So question number 1 that we asked was, where did they go out from and go out to? And now we have clarity on that. We're looking for a midah, which will be an access point. You can't learn that from the theory. You have to go out, practical, look at the world, look for success, what actually works. Question number 2, which was Rabbeinu Yonah's actual point, is there only one path? Why is he saying there's only one path? But we've actually answered that very clearly now. Of course, there's many, many, many paths. There's many specific, unique, individual paths that you could take. But what he was sending his Talmidim out to look for was an access point, a way which if you invest in, it won't just be a specific, unique point that you've invested in, but that will open the door for you to have many other areas. You can see why this Mishnah is so crucial for us. This may be one of the most vital Mishnahs that we ever learned together. Because this Mishnah is telling us if you discover a path, everything else flows. Everything else is smooth. It doesn't have to be a tircha again and again and again in every area that you decide to work on. But rather with the understanding well of this Mishnah, we could learn specific access points which can give us an entry point to the rest of Avodas Hashem in an easy, smooth way. Now, I know easy, smooth are not words that we often use in Torah. That's more modern American society mindset. And Avodas Hashem, it's more about the amelis and the effort you put in. But that's the words of Rabbeinu Yonah. Let me just read that to you again. Ki tov la'adam le'echoz V'nakel elav. And then everything else will be easy for you. Lasik kolam chashuvot. So it's a Rabbeinu Yonah's word there, the word easy. Once you get this access point, you've got an open door, everything else after here will be easy for you. Question number 3. Why does it use the word ledavek and not the word sheyelech? Yelech would have been a better word, that you should follow that path. Why does it say you should attach yourself to that path? That was our question number 3. So here I saw a commentary which is called the Lev Avot, who answered this question, and I like this answer very, very much. The word path implies that you don't actually want to be there, you want to get to the end. But you're on the path in the meantime until you get to the end. That's what a path is. So if it would say, Derech hayashar sheyelech bo ha'adam, that would imply that what we're describing now is not the end goal, it's just something that we need to get to our end goal, which we haven't described exactly what that end goal is. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in his infinite wisdom, and he doesn't use the word sheyelech. He uses the word shidabek, because this principle is our end goal. And I'm sure everyone's familiar with this quote of the Gra, but the Gra says that the purpose why we come to the world is to work on our midas, to break our bad midas. Ve'im lo, lama lo chayim, says the Gra. Without this, what's the purpose of life? Our end goal in this world is the perfection of the role that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us in this world. Every person here has a unique role that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them. And their perfecting themselves is their unique mission, which they were sent to the world for. So discovering this path that we're describing now is not just the path, which is the means to an end, but rather yidabek bo adam. This is what you have to stick with for life. This is the purpose of our goal. It's the journey's end goal. It's what we're here for. That's the Lev Avot, which I thought was amazing, because then it makes this mission not temporary, but something which is going to be long-term with us for life. Perfecting our mitzvahs is something which is our end goal. The 4th question that we asked was, what's the difference between our Mishnah and Rebbe? Rebbe said, Shiavor lo Adam. So it's important to note, as I said already, that Rebbe was a later generation, which means that Rebbe already has all these points in mind, and he's coming to add something additional after it. He is not saying Shidabek bo Adam, because that we've already done, we've already attached ourselves. Rather, he's saying Shiyivor. If you remember when we spoke about that Mishnah, when we first started the 2nd Perek, we described it in the following way. Every person in life has certain points where he has a decision that he has to make of his inner world without clear guidelines of how to make that decision. And at that point, we spoke about having an inner world where you develop your inner world, where you're able to tune in to what the right path for you is. We described that at the time. Anyone interested, you can just look up that shir and listen to it again. Rebbe is saying the following idea. This is a Tosfos Yom Tov who says this interpretation. Rebbe is saying the following idea. Once you've chosen the path to attach yourself with, let's say you choose Ayin Tova, like Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus, even within that path, there's going to be many, many, many points where you're going to have to decipher whether is this right for me at this point in this scenario or whether it's not. It's not a very simple thing where you just say, okay, I've bought into that path and I'm sold for life. But rather, that would be lazy. That would be where a person doesn't have to do their own inner work, where they just say, okay, I've chosen that path, I'm safe. It doesn't work like that. You first attach yourself to a path, and then even along that path, throughout that path, there's a beirur, sheyivor lo ha'adam, that has to take place. A person has to ensure constantly that he's on the path. By any decision that comes his way, he has to check, is this Ayin Tova or is this not Ayin Tova? There'll be some things which will become second nature for him and he won't have to ask them. And there'll be other things which will be a new scenario which he doesn't know how to relate to, which he'll have to clarify, is this Ayin Tova or not? And that by doing that, you acquire more and more Ayin Tova for yourself. Because the areas that are already second nature to you, they become Ayin Tova naturally. And then Rebbe is saying, but you'll always have to get new scenarios and say, is this Ayin Tova? Me, with my Ayin Tova perspective, how would I relate to this situation? You have a guideline now, you have a path now, and you have to know how to relate to it. Rebbe was coming, in a later generation, Rebbe was coming and adding that it's a constant clarification that a man has to do. And the final question is, why did Rabbi Yochanan not just tell them, if he had a thought on this, why didn't he just tell them his opinion? Why did he go and tell them to go out and discover it? And this answer is brilliant because it touches us very personally. Every person in every generation has to go and look for what their unique path is. Although these 5 Talmidim are giving us the 5 major paths, which Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is in favor of, the last one especially, but he was saying, this is something which I can't tell you. Discovering your access point is something very unique and personal to you. My Talmidim, go out and look for it yourselves. It's something which, according to your Shorish Neshama, according to the root of who you are, you will discover what your access point is. How do you do that? Go and look at the world. There'll be certain things that your eye will pick up on, and you'll say, that is a path to success. And you will attach yourself to that. And there are certain things that won't really speak to you. And you'll know that for you, that's not an access point for you. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai wasn't able just to tell them, hereby I declare and determine that every person in the world's access point is, and then give one of them, because it might not be broken down in a way that every person would be able to relate to. Once it says to his Talmidim, you go and look for yourselves what your access point is, then every person is able to discover what it is for them. And where does that leave us? That leaves us that we were given the 5 major branches of access points. We can go and look for ourselves, but we're being advised to look first of all in these 5 areas, because these are likely to be the most major ways that we'll find our access points. Is it possible we'll find another area? It's possible. Like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, go look out for yourselves. Everyone can go look out for themselves. But we'll start with these 5. But Hashem, over the next few days, when we'll go through these 5 points that each of the 5 Talmidim said, and our goal is twofold. Number 1 is to understand in depth what they were saying, how it's an access point, what the depth behind these 5 phrases are, and how really everything is incorporated, how these points encompass everything else, and why they make the rest of Avodas Hashem smooth, if you like. That's going to be point number 1. And if we're fortunate enough, we're also going to try and see how each of their unique access points connect back to the traits that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai praised them for in the last Mishnah, how that's their underlying essence of who they are. It's a big task we have upon ourselves, but this is a key Mishnah, really a key Mishnah, which could give a person a tremendous guideline and a path for him to attach himself to enable all the rest of his Avodas Hashem to be smooth from there on. Yosef, will you stay on the line?